The twins were a force of nature. Every nanny that had ever stepped foot into the grand estate of Ethan Cross, the elusive millionaire with steel gray eyes and a reputation for brilliance in business, had quit within weeks, sometimes days. His children, Noah and Lila, were 6 years old, sharp as blades, stubborn as stone, and united in their mission to chase away anyone hired to care for them. It wasn't malice exactly, it was grief, unresolved and unspoken, wrapped in the mischief of childhood. Their mother had died 3 years ago, leaving behind echoes in the halls and a silence that money couldn't fill. Ethan buried himself in work, building companies, buying properties, stacking wealth, but the children noticed. Children always notice. They craved something their father's money couldn't buy: time, affection, understanding. And so, they fought every new face that walked through the doors. On a Monday morning in early spring, the twins succeeded once again. The new nanny, a prim Englishwoman with an iron bun and sharper tongue, lasted exactly 48 hours before she stormed out, suitcase banging against the marble floors, muttering about utterly impossible children. Ethan rubbed his temples, frustration etched deep into his brow. His assistant, Clara, hovered nearby, clutching a folder of resumes. "Mr. Cross, this is the 12th one in 6 months, she said carefully. Ethan's voice was clipped. "Find another." "Yes, sir. But, if I may, perhaps it's not about finding someone stricter. Maybe it's about finding someone who..." "Clara." His tone closed the subject. He had a meeting in 30 minutes. Millions on the line. He didn't have time to discuss emotions. That afternoon, while Clara scrambled through agencies and recruitment sites, a young woman walked through the gates of the estate, not as a candidate for nanny, but as a maid. Her name was Isabella Reyes. Isabella was 24, the daughter of immigrants, soft-spoken, with deep brown eyes that carried stories she rarely shared. Life had never been gentle with her. She worked quietly, cleaning rooms and polishing glass, moving invisibly through the mansion where wealth was abundant but warmth was scarce. She wasn't trained in childcare, had no degrees, no fancy credentials. But what she did have was a heart shaped by hardship, a patience born of her own scars, and a gentleness that lingered like sunlight. The twins noticed her immediately. One evening, when Noah spilled his orange juice on the carpet and a maid scolded him harshly, Isabella simply knelt, dabbed the mess with a towel, and smiled. "It's okay. Everyone makes a mess sometimes. I do too." Noah blinked at her, caught off guard. Most adults either snapped or ignored him. She had done neither. Another time, Lila threw a tantrum when her hair wouldn't braid right. Isabella, walking by with laundry, stopped. She didn't scold, didn't sigh. She simply sat cross-legged on the floor beside her and said, "When I was your age, I used to cry over my braids too. Want me to try?" Lila hesitated but nodded. Isabella's fingers were gentle, steady, weaving the strands until they formed a neat braid. Lila stared at her reflection, wide-eyed. "You didn't pull." "Why would I?" Isabella shrugged softly. "Hair deserves kindness too." Word spread quickly between the twins. This maid wasn't like the others. She didn't bribe them with sweets, didn't threaten punishment, didn't try to win them over with false cheer. She simply saw them. And that was the very thing they'd been waiting for. Within weeks, Isabella became the center of their small world. She was the one they asked for at bedtime, the one they clung to during storms, the one they ran to with scraped knees and hidden tears. The staff noticed, whispered about it in the kitchens. Clara noticed too, and for the first time in months, she saw the twins smile without mischief, laugh without cruelty. Ethan did not notice, at first. He was consumed by work, traveling between boardrooms and airports, always chasing the next deal. But one evening, arriving home late, he paused outside the playroom, drawn by a sound he hadn't heard in years: laughter. Not the shrill, defiant laughter of rebellion, but warm, bubbling laughter, innocent and free. He peered inside. Isabella sat on the floor, building a fort out of blankets and chairs. The twins were giggling, climbing inside, handing her pillows. She wore no uniform now, just a simple sweater, her hair falling loosely around her shoulders. Her smile was gentle, unguarded. Ethan froze, struck by the scene. His children looked happy, radiantly happy. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt something he couldn't name. The next morning, he summoned Clara. "Who is she?" he asked, gesturing toward Isabella as she carried fresh linens upstairs. "The maid, sir. Isabella Reyes." "Why are the children with her all the time?" Clara hesitated. "Because she's the only one they listen to. The only one they trust. Ethan frowned. She's not qualified. She was hired to clean, not to raise my children. With respect, sir, Clara said carefully, your children chose her. That thought unsettled Ethan more than he wanted to admit. Children, he believed, shouldn't be the ones making decisions. Yet deep down, he remembered their laughter, the way their eyes had glowed. Days turned into weeks. Isabella continued caring for the twins, though unofficially. She never overstepped, never asked for recognition. She still scrubbed floors and polished silver. But she tucked the twins into bed with stories. She taught them kindness, like sharing toys with the gardener's son, or writing thank-you notes to the cooks. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls around their small hearts began to fall. One night, when Noah had a nightmare, he ran not to his father's room but to Isabella's. She held him until he calmed, whispering softly, stroking his hair. Ethan stood at the doorway, unseen, guilt tightening in his chest. He realized then how absent he'd been, not just physically, but emotionally. He'd lost his wife and, in protecting himself from more pain, he'd let his children drift. For the first time in years, Ethan sat down with them the next morning. He tried awkwardly to butter their toast, asked about their games. The twins eyed him with suspicion at first, but Isabella smiled encouragingly, and slowly, they answered. It was the beginning of something fragile, something real. But life has a way of testing what's fragile. One afternoon, while Ethan was away at a crucial merger meeting, the twins wandered toward the lake at the edge of the estate. They weren't supposed to, everyone knew the rule. But children test boundaries, especially when chasing dragonflies. Noah slipped. The water pulled him in, currents swirling. Lila screamed. Isabella, carrying laundry across the garden, dropped everything at the sound. She sprinted, heart pounding, dove into the icy water without hesitation. She wasn't a strong swimmer, but she didn't think, she just fought her way to Noah, pushing him upward, gasping, dragging him to the shore with every ounce of strength she had. By the time security rushed over, Isabella was coughing, shivering, soaked to the bone, but Noah was safe in her arms, sobbing into her chest. When Ethan arrived hours later, he found Isabella in the guest room, wrapped in blankets, pale but alive. The twins refused to leave her side. Noah clutched her hand as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Something inside Ethan broke wide open. He sat by her bed after the children fell asleep, his voice low. You risked your life for him. Isabella's lashes fluttered. Of course I did. They're children. They deserve someone who won't give up on them. Her words pierced deeper than she knew. From that day forward, things changed. Ethan didn't hire another nanny. Instead, he asked Isabella, quietly, earnestly, if she would stay, not as a maid, not as a temporary solution, but as someone who belonged in their lives. She hesitated. She was just a girl from a poor family, carrying her own burdens, her own dreams. She didn't belong in a millionaire's world. But then Noah and Lila crawled into her lap, whispering, please don't go. Her heart made the choice for her. The weeks turned into months. The twins grew steadier, kinder, no longer the terrors of the household but children learning to heal. Ethan grew too, slower with work, quicker with affection, learning bedtime stories and pancake breakfasts, things he'd once thought unimportant. And through it all, Isabella was there, not just as their caregiver, but as the quiet force that taught them love wasn't about wealth or perfection, but presence and patience. One evening, as the sun set over the sprawling estate, Ethan watched the three of them chasing fireflies in the garden. Lila laughed, nose hand in Isabella's, her face glowing in the golden light. And he realized with a clarity that stunned him, this woman had done what no one else could. She hadn't just tamed his children, she had healed them. And in the process, she had healed him too. For the first time since his wife's death, Ethan allowed himself to feel hope. Not the brittle hope of contracts and fortunes, but the living, breathing hope of family. Of second chances, of love born in the most unexpected places. The twins had driven every nanny away. But the maid had stayed, and changed everything. And in that truth, their story began, not with endings, but with the kind of beginnings that last a lifetime.